Hey guys, welcome back to another video in the r/entitledparents subreddit. I have a story for you today about some parents that don't like their son OP's girlfriend because she's Jewish. So, the entitled parents try to break up OP's relationship on several occasions, even going as far as to offer OP's girlfriend money if she breaks up with him, all because they're not the same religion. Ah, how shallow and pedantic. Sound like such lovely people. So let's just jump into it, shall we? My parents attempt to break up my relationship several times, culminating in the Thanksgiving from hell. My parents have long been a pain in my ass, but for now, I'm going to mainly focus on my Thanksgiving from hell and the incidents leading to it. A few years ago, I met my future wife on an online dating app. We hit it off fairly quickly, and the relationship progressed really fast. I was in my late 20s, she turned 30 soon after we met. We both had a good idea of what we were looking for in a partner and had no interest in games. I met her parents within a few months, though I was much more reluctant to introduce her to mine, for reasons that would become apparent. The problems began almost as soon as I told my folks I was dating someone. This was about 6 months into my relationship, as I was reluctant to inform my parents due to the fact that they had tried to call the cops on my last long-term girlfriend. Myself, my brother, and my parents were having dinner at a local Mexican restaurant and making small talk. They started asking me questions about my girlfriend, mostly the usual innocent questions, but at some point I let it slip that she was Jewish. Boy, was that a mistake. My parents are hyper-conservative Christians. For years, they had been trying to get me to date a girl from our church, a good friend of mine, but we were never really a match to be a couple, and always expected I would marry someone who was at least a Christian. I'm Christian by belief to this day, but I rarely have interactions with the church due to some incidents with the priest. Not that kind of incident, but yet another good story for later. My dad, without missing a beat, told me I should break up with her. He told me that I was going to marry a Christian girl, and that was that. I was pissed, and I don't remember the full extent of the rest of that conversation, but I told him that I was not breaking up with her, and the rest of the dinner was tense. The next couple of months went about as smooth as you might imagine, but I thought I was slowly wearing them down. At some point, they invited my girlfriend and I over for dinner, and they thought there was finally some progress being made. Nope. They got my brother to distract me in another room of the house while they sat down with my girlfriend and explained why they did not think she was good for me. They straight up told my girlfriend that she needed to break up with me because I was going to marry a good Christian girl. They even offered to pay her if she ended up leaving me. My girlfriend politely told them off and we left. Fast forward to November. My family is really big on the holidays, as I know many are, and we had very large extended family gatherings for Thanksgiving and Christmas. In my entire life, we had only missed one of these events. I wanted to go and take my girlfriend to meet the rest of the family. My parents may have had their heads up their asses, but the rest of my family has always seemed great to me. The event would be at my grandmother's house this year, my mom's mother, with a small gathering for my dad's side the day before Thanksgiving. I talked to my grandmother, who was fine with me bringing my girlfriend up, so long as we slept in a separate room. I decided to ask my mother as well. Not that I needed her permission, but I am an optimist, and I hoped that she would be on board, and maybe seeing my girlfriend having positive interactions with the family would help the situation. My mother was resistant at first, mainly because she was upset that we were getting an apartment together, and did not want to encourage the relationship further, but eventually agreed. I should also note, I set some very clear boundaries with my mother about conversations for this trip, which she brushed off as unnecessary, but I had my guard up nonetheless. We head to my grandmother's city, and frankly, the first day is nothing but pleasant. My girlfriend gets to meet both my grandmothers, some of my cousins, and other extended family. We're having a fairly good time, and I think things are actually going to go well, until my girlfriend and I decide to go to a movie. We're going to go see Arrival in theaters. My brother, who is 5 years older than me, wants to tag along. He rode up with my parents, my girlfriend and I came up in my car, so my brother has to ride with us to the movie. The three of us sit together, and my girlfriend and I snuggle through most of it. It was a fantastic movie, and the ending made me cry. My girlfriend held me as the credits rolled, but I think all the cuddles had not sat well with my brother, who was single. He got up, and I will never forget what he said, or the malicious tone in which he said it. "Too bad Mom and Dad will never let you marry her, because she's Jew." My brother jogged out of the theater before either my girlfriend and I could muster up a response. We sat there, a bit dumbfounded for a few minutes. Eventually the house lights went up in the theater and we tried to formulate a plan. I have no idea where my brother is at this point, but he can't go too far considering we drove him. I decided to call my folks, considering I have no clue where he is, and really don't want to talk to him at this point. To my surprise, my mother sides with me and tells me it's alright if we just leave him. He can get an Uber back. We half consider it, but we find him on the way out, and my girlfriend, used to dealing with assholes and children in her job, completely cows him with words. He silently rides back with us, we drop him off, and my girlfriend and I go have dinner by ourselves. We debate just leaving, but decide my parents themselves have not crossed any of the boundaries we set, so we stay for now. It would not take them long though. The same evening, I was getting ready to watch some Netflix in bed with my girlfriend. Nothing untoward was going to happen, she just likes falling asleep to the Great British Baking Show. As I walk past the living room, my mother calls me in and complains that I'm not spending enough time with my family. I'm a bit angry at this common manipulation tactic from my mother, but go chat for my grandmother's sake. My mom tries to tell me that my grandma is upset with me, that my girlfriend and I are planning to move in together before we are married. I decide that my grandmother does not need my mother being a mouthpiece for her, so I sit on the couch, in between the two of them, and face my grandmother. My grandma and I chat. She is a bit worried about me moving in with a woman while unwed, but we calmly discuss the situation. She does not back down on her objection, but eventually concedes that it is my life. She likes my girlfriend, and she's happy for us regardless. This entire time, my mother has been constantly trying to butt in on the conversation, but I'm physically putting myself between her and my grandmother, which is just pissing my mother off. Eventually, my father sees what is going on and also butts in. Apparently, he can't contain himself anymore and just goes off about everything he sees wrong with my relationship. I can't remember his exact gripes. I likely tuned them out, but I did call him a coward for talking shit behind my girlfriend's back. This really pissed him off, and he stormed out to fetch my girlfriend. He came back with my girlfriend in tow and proceeded to tear into her in front of me, my mom, and my grandmother, who was mortified that this was happening in her house. My son will be Christian, his wife will be Christian, his children will be baptized in our church. He was nearly screaming at her. He also basically accused her of trying to steal my inheritance by getting knocked up by me, and added some very inappropriate commentary about he knew my girlfriend was getting older and her biological clock was ticking down. Through the whole tirade, my girlfriend stood there quietly. Like I said, she is used to dealing with assholes, and she's tough as nails. Letting him finish up and run out of energy, my girlfriend turned to my grandmother and thanked her for her hospitality before turning back to my father and asking, "Why did you even invite us here if you were going to act like this?" My dad yelled again, "We did not invite you here. We never would have invited you here." At this point, I gleefully pulled out my phone and showed him the conversation I had had with my mother, where she agreed for my girlfriend to be here. My dad could not find words, but just glared at his wife. At this point, I told him that my girlfriend and I were leaving. It was nearly 11 p.m., but we packed up my car and left for our hometown. My dad got in one more word before we left, saying, "You two better have broken up by the time you get home. Have a long, hard thought about your future." To which I just laughed, as we got in the car. My girlfriend and I drove home on pure adrenaline. We alternated between angry, humiliation, and frustration at the absurdity of the whole thing. This story does have something of a happy ending though. In the days that followed, we got a lot of calls and messages of support from my relatives, who I had not told about the incident. Turns out, my brother had made some vague social media posts about how sad he was for me, and asking everyone to pray for my brother. Apparently, many of my relatives took this to mean I had been hurt, and were all calling my mother and father. When my parents were forced to explain the situation, all of my relatives sided with my girlfriend and I. In addition, my father has had a dramatic change over the course of the intervening years. Where it once seemed like we were not going to invite my parents to our wedding, my dad ended up actually being the happiest person there when my girlfriend, now wife, and I tied the knot. This has been helped by the fact that he discovered some underlying mental health issues, and the meds he is using are truly helping him. He's started acting like the father I loved when I was a kid. My mother is still a problem, and boy do I have more stories, but she is mostly behaving because she knows my wife and I can and will block her from seeing future grandchildren. A classic case of people that take religion too far. I grew up Catholic, I totally understand religion and faith, and I am very much so a to each their own kind of gal. But when people act the way like OP's parents did, think less of people for ridiculous reasons such as being Jewish, and say things like, my son has to marry a Christian girl and have Christian kids, and can't marry anyone outside the Christian church. That's a cult, sweetie. You're in a cult, and you've taken it too far. I'm glad to hear though that OP's parents, well, dad at least, got some help, and that OP has a good enough head on his shoulders to know that he may have to cut his mom off in the future for his children's sake. Always nice to see when people aren't completely in the fog. But anyways, that is all from me today. I hope you enjoyed that entitled parent story. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I truly appreciate when you do. And I will see you in the next Reddit story. Bye!